Welcome back to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Murrell. This week's special guest is Andy Woodward, whose story will shock you to your core. Andy opens up about the dark side of football, revealing some of the sport's darkest secrets after decades of sexual abuse. Andy found the courage to come forward. His brave act not only rocked the football world, but also sparked a movement for justice and change. Join us as we explore Andy's journey from a promising defender to a beacon of resilience. Thanks for listening and watching this episode.
The FA, the PFA, why don't they protect me? The loneliness is in you. And throughout my life, everything that I've tried to do, somebody or something or some institute has destroyed me. Give me a break.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Murrell, and this week's special guest is Andy Woodward. Andy's story is a heartbreaking one, and I just want to say how brave and how strong you are, and thank you for coming on and sharing the good, the bad and the ugly with us, Andy. How are we, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm doing. I'm getting there now. Yeah, I'm feeling much stronger.
Yeah. Last time we spoke, Andy, in one of our earlier episodes was with Sean from Child Elusive Protection Unit. Is that right? Elusive Child Protection Unit.
That's it. Yeah.
Very strong, very deep. You know what we're going to talk about. Child protection and stuff and what goes on. But once again, and I know you've had a very, very busy day and it's been planes, trains and also with Beals to get here, and I just want to say thank you for coming here this evening.
Oh no, it's from the last podcast I did with you, I've been interviewed all over the world, and and that's a fact and that's truth. But what I know now is I realise, and I do really genuinely get this gut feeling and this vibe from people that are honest, and people that are great, and people that are trustworthy, and that's why I wanted to come on here following that. I
appreciate that, and that's it's lovely words, and like I say, I'm just grateful that you've come back, and I know you've got a very, very powerful story, and I want you to share it with with our viewers and stuff like that. I just want to start from where you grew up, school life and family life was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've told this story numerous times, as you know. But in terms of myself, from a very young age, what I'll introduce the synergies and how this universe and how there's light and dark. Because before I was born in 1971, my mum's sister was 9 months pregnant in Manchester, and she left a pub and was walking down the main Kingsway Road. And she was hauled in by a man, a stranger. That man's name was Barry Bennell, and he murdered her 9 months pregnant. It was only later down the road that Barry Bennell's cousin was Barry Bennell. So in terms of me as a child, as a young age, my mum and dad were the most caring, loving, protective mum and dad that you can ask for. Didn't have any money really. My dad was out of work, and we lived in a little semi, and then they lost the house, and we ended up moving to Chile. It was a council estate, in a nice area, but it was a council estate, and they thought they'd won the lottery, and my childhood right the way through was protective, love, care, my sisters, close relationships. And then I just would start playing football about from the age of 5 onwards, and as soon as I picked that ball up, that was it. I wouldn't put it away.
That's the city. I think with a lot of us, you find something in life, from a young age, football especially for most lads and even young girls now, doing a lot in the women's football and stuff.
Yeah.
But you get a ball now, it's one of them, and you're playing football from an early age. And was that what you wanted to do when you picked the ball up career? That I want to be a footballer.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it was from a young age. And my mum and dad were never pushy parents either. They didn't ask me to do it. They didn't push me to do it. It was just in me. It was in me, and I had a talent from a very young age. I started playing for Juno United, local team, under 10s, and then it just snowballed from there really. And then from school, I was one of the best. Well, I was the best player by far, but I'm not got any ego. but yeah, I ended up getting trials for Stockport Boys. Played for Stockport Boys. Unbeknown to me, at the age of 10, we got told that there was a football coach coming to watch, a professional one, and that's all we got. didn't know who it was, and it's like we used to watch it with my dad and sit next to him, and I used to say to him, I want to do that, and for a professional coach to be there, I probably played the best I'd played ever from that age. I remember it, and he came over and introduced himself to my mum and dad, and lo and behold, that was Barry Bennell. And he asked if I could go to training, and I turned up at Platt Lane at Man City. He said he was a Man City coach, and it all started from there really. And once we got there and I went in the changing room, I remember it vividly like it's yesterday, because trauma sits with you. It's like it is yesterday, and I can see all the young lads in there, and I was one, obviously, and it was all the town team players from different areas. So clearly he'd obviously gone around and picked the cream. The
county, was it all?
Yeah. The town teams, the district, and he formed this team up. And prior to that, he wanted we'd gone to the training, and then he said that he was sort of going to transfer across to Crewe. So we were training at Platt Lane,
Man
City, but then he started saying, right, we're going to have a trial at Crewe. So I remember, and you know how there's forks in roads and paths, and how they can take you one way or the other. The defining thing that happened was the day before I was due to go on this trial day to Crewe, to actually form his team. My sister got run over, and she got hit by a car, and the police come round and they said, we don't know how she is. Luckily, she'd ended up knocking her teeth out, and her leg was bad and whatnot. But I was crying, and I didn't want to go to this trial.
Yeah, your sister, your family.
It was my sister, and I was like, I don't want to go, and I was crying. My sister turned around and said, no, please, Andrew, go. And those defining moments where if I hadn't, my life would have been completely different.
Do you really think that, Andy?
I believe in it. And that defining moment of me going to that trial literally led this life.
Because that's what I was going to say to you, and obviously with Bennell being at the Man City, and then obviously knowing that he was going to be going to Crewe, and obviously he'd picked all these lads, scouted them. It's the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he wanted to take them across to Crewe. Was anything happening before you were moving to Crewe, or?
Yeah, it happened instantaneously.
Straight away?
With me, it was within a couple of weeks. And I remember it was a night, we used to train on Tuesday or whenever, Thursday night, and he'd gone to see my parents. And what he'd done is he'd had time, and this is what he was like. He was on another level. But he had time to read the parents.
Groom the parents, basically?
Well, read them first. Read the players to see who was more sensitive and who was a bit quieter. And I was really quite quiet. My personality hasn't. Yes.
That, yeah.
So he'd levelled that out. He'd realised who. And obviously I'm dark skin, dark hair, and I was quite a good looking boy. And he just asked my parents if I could stay at the weekend. They sort of spoke to me and said to me, do you want to go? He'd obviously told them it's going to further his career, it's going to help him, blah, blah, blah.
What, 10 years of age is this?
10, yeah. And, I'm 50 years of age now, and I've had 40 years of hell. But I tell you, within that hell, there is nothing I don't know about paedophilia. I've watched and seen them. I know their MOs, and I know what they do. But as a 10-year-old, I was excited to go, because he was a piper. He used to dribble the ball. He could do things with the football that, back then in the 80s. I'm talking about stuff that, they do now, Ronaldo and all that with the ball. So he could do all that then. He could spin it on his finger, you name it. And that was part of his MO again. And then, I went, and I remember going the first weekend, there was another player there with me, another 10-year-old. And it was just, his house, I've said it before numerous times, his house was like a playground. Fish tanks, bloody pool tables. It happened really, really quickly. I think it might have been the second weekend, it might have been the first. But, you know, it was, you know, his MO was 2 boys in a bed either side and follow me. And that was it. And that defined my life. Because that first time, I remember being completely frozen.
Yeah.
I mean, frozen. And you know, when you've got trauma, when you've had trauma, and people will sort of like realise this, that your images that you have are literally like watching a video. It's very hard to accept that video, and it has its big problems with it in terms of the emotional attachment to it. But that defined my life, and you know, it went from there, pretty much from touching to he upped it.
Yeah.
But it was only when he'd got his complete trust and he knew which 2 he was having, or one with me, because the other boy stopped staying after a period.
Yeah.
That he upped the game.
Did the other boy speak to his, you know?
Yeah, I don't know why or what, but I know that he won't have told him what happened. He just would have said, "I don't want to stay anymore." And back then, you know, you can. I mean, it's the ripple effect on. You know, like I said, my mum and dad were the most protective parents in the world, especially what had happened to my mum's sister.
I was going to ask you this later on in the podcast, if I'm going to be honest, but when you put trust, it's like I always doubt myself because something happened to my daughter, and I always used to question myself about me.
Yeah.
Letting my daughter go to my parents' house, well, my mum's and the person in question, I won't name him because he's not worth it.
No.
And I still question myself because I thought they were safe. I thought she was safe.
Yes.
And I think your mum and dad, I mean, I think you've probably never spoke to them in depth about it because it's still raw and stuff. Or you have, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that I always, I think about it when I go to sleep and stuff. Because I trusted them people.
Yeah.
They're the adults.
Yeah.
My daughter was the child. You're the child.
Yes.
And for me, it's them people who have that control and you just think to yourself, these sick individuals, because that's what they are. They are sick individuals who like young children. Yeah. It's not an illness.
No.
They're just fucking sickos, in my opinion.
Yeah, they are. They're demonic. They are demonic. And the thing is, just the other thing as well, Tony, you know, I have spoke at length with my mum and dad. My dad's no longer here. But the one thing that breaking the story, which we'll talk about later on, but as a parent in the 80s, and how huge it was going on, as we've seen now, the amount of clubs that were involved and the position of trust that those coaches had. There is no parent, even, you know, after all what's happened to me, I don't blame my parents. Yeah. And you as a parent, the thing is that if you feel that your child is in a safe environment, like a parent, like a whatever, you're putting your trust in those people that are trusted by you as adults. It's the worst crime in the world, and the last thing a parent would want for their children to be put into an environment while that's going on. Yeah. So when I broke the story, and the many parents that I spoke to that had children like me at the same age, they felt a fear, an air of freedom, that they didn't feel that guilt as much as it stays there, because that's trauma as a parent, as an adult, and you'll go over it. It's just releasing that burden of guilt that it was your fault, because unless a parent is doing it, putting them into the very vulnerable situations, and it's clear to see, then they own that themselves. Yeah, of course. But if you're a loving parent that's protective of your child, it is not the parent's fault. Does that make sense?
I get it. I totally get it. But like you just hit it on the head there, it's just, you know, when you put trust in people, you know, and it goes on, and we hear so many cases.
Yeah.
And like you just said there, it's the worst despicable crime in the world, you know.
And what these paedophiles don't realise, and your viewers, whoever does watch this, is the ripple effect it has, not only on the victim, the person, but the family, and reaching out, and the relationships that happen later on, and the ripple effect on your own children, and it goes on and goes on and goes on.
It's a life sentence, Andy, that you're living with.
It is a life sentence.
It's, you know, I always say this, it's, you know, these fucking individuals, you know, they get, it's like the sentencing and stuff or whatever, and you think to yourself, it's the worst crime that anyone can commit against a child.
Yeah.
You know, when they get these shitty sentences.
Yeah.
You know, and let's be honest, they are shitty sentences. Sometimes they get, you know, on a register for 10 years, you know, a sexual prevention order. Yeah. They get a, you know, sometimes they get a, you know, it's bound over for, you know, 12 months or 2 years or suspended sentences. You know, these are children we're talking about, you know. It's the children that live the life sentence with these animals who don't deserve to breathe the same oxygen as us.
No.
Because of the despicable things that they do. And they think they can get... And it's not the victim's secret. They haven't done nothing wrong. No. You've not done nothing wrong, Andy. No, do you know what I mean?
No.
It's fucking them. Do you know what I mean?
It is, isn't it? And you know the other thing is, like, you're just touching on that now. And we were talking about being at a young age. But these evil monsters, and they are monsters, they are beyond narcissists. Narcissists are narcissists, but then there's psycho. They're not. It's not an illness. No. They are very clever, astute individuals.
They know what to do.
They have to be, because they have to cover their tracks, whatever they are doing, and they also, it was just recently, just the last few days, I was reading about a Merseyside who was an ex-police or something, who literally said that he learned more to get away with it whilst he was in prison, to then come out and commit a further offence.
Because they all congregate in prison, don't they? They're all on their own wing, and they're all away from the, you know, from the normal prisoners. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. There's some minute of them that sort of look at images or something like that, and they go into rehabilitation, and you know they've made a mistake. But then there's another realm of those people that will never ever stop. They will never stop.
I mean, you're saying, you know, you're a bit more sane than me, and I think even looking at, listen, we know what's right and wrong. You know, I know people look at porn and stuff like that. Yeah. But looking at kids, sorry mate, for me, that is a fucking, you know, that's a no-no. Whether, you know, these people, and you'd always see it like in the local papers and all that, oh, it was a mistake. No, a mistake by going on and searching for images of children, that's not a mistake. And they know what they're searching for, mate.
Absolutely.
So for me, I don't think they make a mistake because they've been caught. That's how it is. It's like anyone who gets caught doing anything. It's, you know, it's all hunky-dory until they get caught. And when they get caught, oh, it was a mistake. It doesn't wash with me, that, you know. But
it's like, and many people that will watch this, you know, they'll look back at their lives, and there's no difference with it happening once and happening, like with me, hundreds of times. Yeah. Once that line has been crossed and you have been destroyed
once or 100 times,
it's trauma, and that trauma sits with you, and you end up with PTSD, panic, relationship problems, drink, drugs. Why do you think this current sort of world that we live in, just this country alone, you see how many people are homeless, you see how many people with drink addictions, you see how many people with drug addictions, you see how many people are no longer with us, you see the suicide rate, and I'll tell you now, the majority of them have suffered some type of abuse as a child in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's there.
All historics, it's...
Yes. And, it wasn't their fault, but they've had to go on...
And they've lived with that.
Lived with it and kept it silent and not said a word and gone off on tangents. We have our free will, but when you're struggling with trauma and it's in there and it's constantly and it's locked in you and you can't speak out about it,
because you do think anyone's going to believe you, and that's why they turn to, like, say, drink, drugs, relationship breakdowns, becoming homeless, losing the job.
This is it. And I'm not saying it's all of that, but
it plays a big part.
When I go around Manchester, I know quite a lot of the homeless because I've tried to help certain ones, that are good. And the amount of conversations I've had with... Oh, yeah, they've spoke out to me and they've told me it happened to them, and they'd see me on the TV and it happened to me, it happened to me, it happened to me. There you go. I tell you, it really, really affects people more than what... And they've sort of brushed it aside, like, there are waiting lists for people with, mental health issues because of trauma, because of that. People are waiting over a year now to even see somebody.
By that time in the year, Andy, the person's obviously no longer here, or because they can't cope with what's going on inside them, or they're crying for help. And
of course, and it's like with me, back then, my own life, it's been destruction. I look back, I know now looking back on it, but at the time I was in this fog. By the age of 18, my partner, I didn't know whether it was gay, whether it was not. I was crossing them with my head, and she fell pregnant and had a child at 18. That didn't last. I met somebody else. I had 4 children with her. That marriage broke down. I've got
the after effects. Andy, it's just...
And with me, with my relationship issues, it was always... I'd always struggled with this, what had happened, but it was always, I only wanted somebody to love me.
Did you, when your relationships on, this might sound like a stupid question, but obviously, did you confide in your partners straight? Did you tell them, or?
Yeah, I said a little bit to the first one, but the second one, I did confide in. Do I wish I hadn't? Yes, I do. Because that got thrown at me, and that's a hard pill to take. But it is what it is. You think that you can confide in someone that you love to
even confide in someone and something that's been in there.
Big. That's big. And those that watch this, ones that haven't confided in the partners or husbands or wives, or those ones that have, and I hope that they've had full support. But if you haven't had that support and you haven't had that full support and it's been thrown back at you, it's destroying, it's destructive.
I couldn't imagine, what the trauma, the extent of what you suffered. Just a little bit of a description, what you said before.
Yeah.
You're confiding and you're opening up.
Yeah.
And then to get it bang back in the face.
Yeah.
Whether it be like, disagreements and whatever, as we all do with families, you're not the only one who people fall out and whatever, and we all have little titty fits and we all have a little bit of a, but to get something like that thrown back in your face, Andy, and how you deal with it, you're dealing with something that's been inside. Your own parents probably didn't. You didn't tell your parents and stuff like that. So to tell your partner at the time and stuff like that. Yeah. For me, that's like a kick in the bollocks. If I'm going to be honest.
Hugely, and and this is why I'm so experienced, because I've had everything. There isn't anything in life that I've not had to sort of like go through. But like going as a child, I mean, I'm talking like every single day being raped. It was horrific.
From the age of 10?
From the age of 10 up to, you normally used to pass it on at 14, but with me I was 13 and he pulled me at Butlins, and then he said, because my sister used to go and clean there. And
at his house?
Yeah, and he said my sister was more than friends, and if I said anything he'd kill me.
You're 13 years of age and
I was 13, yeah. And he was he had this aggressive streak in him, and the lads have spoke about it recently, and he said, "Do you remember what he was like when he used to turn? Just turn like that." So my fear went up another notch. And then he ended up being in a relationship with my sister without my parents knowing at first, but then it was too late. And I live with the guilt with that because
you didn't say nothing
for many years, you know.
But it's the fear, Andy, of obviously what you've been going through, of the abuse, the rape, like you're saying, and then he's saying he's going to kill you because you murmur a word to your parents about the relationship he started having with your sister. I know that guilt's going to be there. Yeah. But then, and you're a 13, you're a child, mate. It's not as if you're an adult.
Yeah. I know that now, but then, you know, for many years, I suffered with that. And it's only recent years that I've been able to... it's acceptance, and that's the key to any abuse. Acceptance. But, you know, for me, it carried on. And then I thought, I'll get rid of him when I become a YTS apprentice, because he only ever used to do kids. And out of all the years, he decided to run our team as an apprentice.
The reserves, was it all?
Well,
the YTs,
the YTs, yeah.
Yeah.
And I got him for another 2 years. And it was like, what the fuck?
You're just trying to follow your dreams, aren't you? You know what I mean? Your dreams is like becoming a professional footballer. Yeah. And, you know, a few people might think, you know, did you think this is what I've had to endure to become a professional footballer? Was that what was going through your mind?
Yeah, this is what I have to go through. And not only that as well, it's like, you know, it was so prevalent. Now, I mean, I was only a kid when I, but, you know, when you look back on it, the stuff that went on at that club at Crewe, you know, the from the secretaries listening to Grady and Bennell fighting and arguing over me. No, he's staying at my house. No, he's mine. No, I want him at my house this weekend. No, he's mine. He is mine. And shouting where I could hear it because I was a young kid outside. They knew what was going on. And it was like, you know, Grady in the video shop that Bennell had. My mum and dad happened to be in there and he didn't know. It was early on, and he asked him. He asked Bennell and went, how'd you get the young kids staying at your house all the time? Get a people carrier and get a pool table. He got both. And then the young kids were all at his house, and then it was a free for all.
Fucking hell.
And the only reason why Mr. Grady got away with it was because of the Sexual Offences Act 2003 came in for grooming. But because previous to that, in the old offences, it wasn't an offence.
It doesn't stand up.
It doesn't stand up in statute. You know, but grooming...
It's fucking horrific, Andy.
I mean, you're talking 4 or 5 kids at his house, 4 or 5 at Bennell's, a couple at another coach's house. You know, what?
You know, I know there was a lot of, you know, lads that, you know, who did actually speak out. I mean...
Yeah.
It was 2016.
Yeah, it was.
You finally built up the courage to speak out about this
and I'll
individual.
Just quickly interject there as well, because through all that time, they know who they are at that club. Those that are still alive. Those that are still alive knew and know they own their own guilt for that.
They're going to live
now,
with that.
A vast majority of people at that club, i.e. the fans, certain staff members that were on the peripheral of it, you know, what brilliant people. They were loving, caring, lovely people. But there was a core in there that knew exactly what was going on.
You know, you just think to yourself, you know, why? And was they ever removed? Were they removed or?
No. And that's the thing, and I wanted to reiterate that because I was only a child. I didn't ask for this. And they know who they are.
Nobody deserves it, Andy.
No. And neither did any of the other lads there deserve it. But the fans and the people around the ground, i.e. that weren't in there, they were lovely people. And it was a lovely fan set.
Yeah.
If only they knew
what
was going on.
Behind closed doors.
Yeah. There'd have been anarchy.
You know, any normal person, you know, people don't put up with that. But then obviously, like you said, there was a core of that was behind it, and people knew. And this is what annoys me, you know, because people like tend to brush things under the carpet. It'll go away.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like fucking annoys me because you know people like brave individuals, strong individuals like yourself, like my daughter, like many other victims who have the courage to speak out.
Yeah, they're warriors.
You know, and I just think beyond, I can't even describe how strong and brave, you know, you are. You know what I mean? And many other people, victims who spoke out.
Yeah.
And the likes of these people who think it's their secret. It's their secret.
Yeah.
And they try, you know, it's not the victim's secret.
And they'll do anything to worm themselves out of it. Anything. They will do anything to worm out.
And when you see these sick individuals face to face or in court or whatever, they go into this little cowering, little shitty individual, you know, they're not the big person that, you know, and you see them squirm and you see them like sitting and sloping in the chair, you know. I remember it in court, and it just, and the people that defend them, you know, that represent them, you know.
But then there's this Bennell, and he knew he still had a hold over me, right the way up to 2003 when I went for Crew, behind the scenes, and the solicitor asked me to go and see him, and I thought I could out them then. And it makes me laugh, you know, there's certain people that have come out after me and said, well, I brought it out on dispatches, etc. And with a little bit of a like arrogance about it, why didn't it not come out then? Well, unfortunately, people didn't speak out then. I didn't know what, you know, the magnitude of what was going to happen. But it's like, you know, that side of it, Tony, is like, you know, it doesn't matter who comes out with it, just somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And back then, in those days, with the dispatches side of things, it was so brushed under the biggest carpet that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Nobody was going to speak out then. Nobody.
They didn't declare certain things, or they didn't mention certain things.
Yes.
It was to a minimum, and you know.
Yes.
Where yourself.
Yes.
Was fucking full throttle, wasn't
And
it?
this is the thing. In 2003, I tried then to sue Crew, but how this happened, I'll never know. But 3 barristers turned up to my one, who all I wanted was it ruined my career. And then the judge changed, so say, on the day when the original judge disappeared. And this judge tell me to go back to being a police officer. And the 3 barristers all high-fiving them, each other. I felt like my whole world had caved in, because it was never about any money. It was me thinking, I can out you. You're in prison, and I can now out you, who's behind it as well. Back then. And it was quashed.
It's crazy how like stuff like this just seems to get, and you hear a lot of people in the media or speak on social media saying a lot of people, judges, is one, or people in the establishments. It's you know, are they certain individuals and stuff like that?
Well, I tell you, yeah. Well,
and it's what people say, and you know.
Well, it's like you know, when I brought the story out in 2016, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the 2003 thing, I've done all my analysing and I've looked at it. At the time, I was frightened to death because I thought, well, I've lost my career, I've had panic attacks, I've had panic disorder. I'm now in the police. Oh no, I can't say a word. But then behind the scenes there, there's two very powerful institutes called the FA and the PFA, who would have known that this was going through court. And at Manchester as well, the headquarters of the PFA is literally around the corner.
There's 92 football clubs, the PFA, the FA, the EFL and all that. All them football clubs are part of that corporation. Well, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you're telling me that they would not have known about this case in the civil court to do with Crewe Alexander? Me versus Crewe. And lo and behold, 3 barristers, not 1.
And this is the thing, the same thing again, brushed under the carpet.
And it went away.
It's fucking crazy.
It went away.
Just silenced.
Yeah. And it's like 97 when they came, and moving on with my life, you know, they came from nowhere and they just hounded me, the detectives. Hounded me. Because he'd been arrested in America at 94. But this is a hold he still had on me even then. And I know I wasn't the only one, but many players gave an affidavit for him in America whilst he was going on trial for his offence over there.
Was he was still at it over there in America and that?
Yes. He had soccer schools there. I went at 17 with him. And I remember I was with Craig Ignat. Remember Craig?
Yeah.
Yeah. I went over there coaching with Craig.
Yeah.
And he was at Crewe, so we went over there to help Bennell out. And obviously I got told I was going, because I was only 17. You're doing it. And he snapped his leg over there. But he'd set up soccer camps there. And I remember being sat on the beach, and Craig was on the other one, and he skidded it, and he ended up hitting Bernard as he was getting on it. And he snapped his leg. It was the only time that he had a life jacket on. Because I thought to myself, drown. And he bobbed back up.
Snapped Bennell's leg, did he?
Yeah.
And you hoping he was going to sink to the bottom of the ocean.
Yes. You imagine a 17-year-old lad who's just literally 12 months before his last time he touched me up. And I was looking and I was going, drown, you bastard.
And you're still living with this all inside.
Yeah, I never said a word.
You couldn't.
Never said a word.
Best friend or anything like that, and did you never like anyone in football? Did you just...
Nope.
Just...
After 97 I did.
Yeah.
Because the detectives come, and the only reason I gave a statement, or the only reason I spoke up, it completely... I knew it was going to ruin everyone, because my sister was married to him. You know, she had
Children.
2 kids with him.
Yeah.
I saw me 8. They caught me at the wrong time for me, but they caught me when my nephew was there, and he was 8. And I thought, you fucker, you're not touching him. You are not touching him. Mm-hmm. So it was either my 8-year-old and my nephew, who was 8, or my football career, because I knew it was gonna take me under, and I chose to protect him.
Yeah, that's it's no what's name. And you know what I mean? But
although it was my dream and I was doing well,
yeah.
I was doing well for Barry. You know, at the time we were in the championship. You know, it's like, and I just went downhill after that.
Playing football and something that you love doing, and you're living with that inside, and you know, going into games and stuff, and you're trying to prepare, and it's hard enough at a professional level.
Yeah.
To do it, you know, you've got to be, 90 minutes of non-stop, what's the name, and especially in that, you know.
Imagine though, it's like now, it makes me laugh. It's like they have all these mental health, workers, and they have all this support and everything else, even at the lower levels as well. But you imagine, like, it's like I look back and I can laugh about it now, because
in today's game, man,
yeah,
you'd have the support,
and it's like back then I was on my own. And I'd been raped over 300 times. And then going out there, like, quietly. And then you have flashbacks in the game. And I'm like, oof. Right, get your head together. You know.
That's what I mean. It's like you're trying to concentrate on the game. And the fucking stuff that's gone on. You know, that's why I'm saying, for somebody to have gone through that trauma and despicable acts. It's just,
and after 97, and 99 losing my career, and, the worst thing I ever did was go in the police, and they interviewed me because I'd seen him in prison.
What was the reason behind that, Andy, if you don't mind me asking?
My whole reason behind it was I was always a caring person, and because I'd been through what I'd been through, I wanted to put something back to help.
Yeah.
And also in the back of my mind was lock these up. Lock anyone up that does wrong.
Especially children, children and stuff like that.
And not even just that. I've always been a person of rights and wrongs.
Yeah.
And anyone does wrong, you should be punished for that. and I've accepted my own wrongs. You know, I've done.
We all make mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes,
Yeah.
and you know, mine big ones have been relationship wise. You know, and I know that I've always accepted it. It's not something that
It
I've
takes
gone,
a lot to admit that, though, and let's be
yeah,
honest, mate.
well,
You know,
I'm honest. You know, I screwed up quite a lot. You know, and a lot of it wasn't my fault, but there was some that was. You know, and I accepted that. I owned it. It was my decisions. We have free will in life, but you know, it just and I'd been to see him in prison, and that's another thing of his power he had over me. When I went to see him to get a statement, because he was going to do a statement on my behalf to help me out. Did he do it? Did he bollocks?
Did he just get you to the
He
prison?
did a statement with crew, but behind the scenes, somebody had been to see him, and he totally altered his statement. Totally changed it. And he sat opposite me, and I went into a child, and he said, "I still love you."
Was this in the visit
In
room?
prison, yeah. And
Did you go and
true.
visit him on your own, or was you
Yeah, on my own, off-duty police officer.
That must have took some doing that, and considering what's gone on. And
I know. And I think back now, and I think, one, I should never have been put in that situation. Two, I should have had somebody with me. And three, that should never have happened, because it screwed my head up.
Was you just following investigation, or did you just go on your own?
I went on my own because the solicitor wanted him to do a statement on my behalf for the civil case.
Right.
Nothing to do with the police whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was just purely so he'd support this claim against crew. And I got in the car afterwards, and I remember, and I just went into child mode. I started shaking, and I felt like a 10-year-old again.
You felt like
I felt like a child again. Yeah.
That whole thing.
Yeah. And then I got interviewed by the police, and they wanted to know why I'd been to see a paedophile, and I explained the whole lot right the way through. They cautioned me and everything, and then they went, right.
Did they support you?
We'll put it on file for you that you will never have to deal with child abuse, anything to do with paedophilia, anything to do with that. It will go on your file, and you'll be protected. And I was like, thank God. I don't. That's. And I went on everyone throughout my career. They put me on everything. Put me on everything you can think of.
They had a marker on you to go and do that, look after that, and known quite well.
And then in 2013, this is when I went really downhill. 2013, when Gary Speed took his life, it broke me. And throughout that time, from 2000, I'd say from 2003 on, and bear in mind I was getting it thrown in my face about myself because I'd confided in someone. I was getting all that thrown at me, and I had several suicide attempts.
So you tried to take
I
your own
drove
way.
the car in the garage, and I was told, go and do it, please. So I did. And I put the pipe in, and I started the engine, and I closed my eyes. And for some reason, the universe up there, I'm alive. Numerous times. I've been on trees, and they snapped. I've been in a caravan, wire around it, and this is hard for people to listen to, but it's true. So I know what it's like to actually, not just, you know, when people say, I'm going to kill myself. I've actually done it. I've took tablets, I've hung myself, I've pipe.
It's a sign, and for not, you know.
No, I know that now because I'd never go there
But to be
again.
at that point,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, you know, like you just spoke about Gary Speed and stuff like that. I know there's been other high profile players at crew and stuff. You know, this is a bit of a tough, but there was many other victims as well.
Many.
Do you think it happened to Gary Speed?
Now, 8 years on, I always protected the family. There was a few that tried to do some reports, and I would never do it. For the absolute, for the family, because I was always respectful of other people. But in terms of the truth, yes, because and that's why I took it so hard, because when I was 11,
Was he in the same age bracket?
He was 14, 15.
A couple of years
so
older.
He'd stopped staying, but he used to stay at his house an awful lot, and there was You know, he had an MO with sisters as well and stuff like that. But the most important thing, what he said to me, he said, you remind me of Gary. You really do, Andy. And for him to say that, and he'd stayed there 3 years previously, and I know what I'd gone through.
You know, you're not, you know, to think we're not fucking.
And when he took his life, it broke me. I can get a little bit emotional about it.
I can see it. Andy.
It broke me but it broke me, and it broke my career, and it broke me again.
Had it come to light by when obviously?
No, that was 2013, and my personal life went into downward.
You spiraled just out.
Oh, I spiraled after that, and the only and what happened was, again with the police, there was a reporter for the Daily Mail magazine called David, and he visited my mum and dad and my sister after he died, and he was doing an article about Gary Speed. And my mum and my sister and my dad were frightened to death. And they were trying to protect Linda, my sister, and good old Andy, the Samaritan that I am, and the goodwill person. I said, well, send him my way, I'll take him off you. I'll do something. So it all got arranged, so my inspector, why he had to be there now, I think to myself, why does he have to be there? He had to be there to witness, to listen to everything that I said. He didn't need to be there, it's a personal thing. Nothing to do with the police.
But he insisted
I was
to be there.
anonymous. It was nothing to do with the police force. Nothing to do with them whatsoever. Nothing to do with policing work. It was to talk about Gary Speed's death. And I was going to be anonymous police officer. It could be any police officer in the land.
But this inspector insisted to be there.
I had to be there. I look back now and I should have told him to go and stick it. Because he has no rights to my personal life. But after that, I got frog marched into the big bosses, and the big bosses said to me, right, Andy, we will look after you now. We'll look after your mental health. We'll look after you. We'll protect you. You won't have to do any other sexual offences, this, that and the other. Guess what? I got put on every single one.
You were put all over.
I was thrown rapes constantly. Have that. And then they put me on an FLO role, which is a family liaison officer. You're supposed to do one a year. I did 3.
In certain cases.
They were driving me into destruction.
Yeah.
And I was going under big time. And then the final straw was they got me, which it was against policing principles. They put me on an FLO role on my own. Should always be, as anything, with
pair.
safety, as 2 people.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was on my own. And then this female started to come on to me. She started texting me, and I crossed the line. And I text back when I was at my lowest of all lows.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I ended up leaving my house in Leyland, and a picture was posted on Facebook, and I got an email off this female, and she said, watch what happens next. And on the Wednesday I went to the police station and I got arrested for rape. I've never raped anyone in my life, and that is the worst offence that anyone could ever accuse me of.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And then when I finally broke the story, it came and surfaced itself again. And it was, Andy Woodward's a rapist. Andy Woodward's this. Andy Woodward's that. Well, hold on. I kept quiet. I never said a word. I let it ride itself because I knew the truth. And not only did I know the truth, my mum still has all the documents that actually said that this woman didn't tell the truth. I told the truth.
And for you to not expose that, to clear your name for something
Yes.
that you quite clearly haven't done, this is like, you must have been like a volcano ready to erupt.
Yeah, it sent me under again.
You're living with this going, hang on, you don't know what's happened to me all these years, and then this woman's crying rape.
Yeah, and one day, and I know what it actually is like to be on the other side of that, you know, whether it's a woman or a man being falsely accused of something you haven't done. But I also know the protocols and what you have to do. If somebody makes a complaint, Like what happened to me, I said, no problem. I will tell the truth. Now deal with it and sort it.
Yeah.
And it should have been dealt with in 2 months. They left me for 18 months high and dry.
With that
hanging over me.
Yeah, yeah.
18 months to investigate something that was as simple as check my phone, do a couple of statements, and it's done.
But they left you let it,
18 months.
with that hanging over your head.
Yeah.
So it was in for you, basically, wasn't it?
Yes.
You know.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work that out, and I'm not trying to make a jigsaw puzzle fit together because I want it to. It does.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody that I spoke to about this, and I've put the cards on the table, they've all said the same as what you said straight away. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
how
it's
you're not the only one I've done a podcast with,
Yeah.
and they've gone straight away. What?
Fucking, it's unbelievable, you know, to...
And I'm not making any allegations towards anybody or anything, but
It's all fact, isn't it?
but that's fact, and that's what was wrong, and that's a wrong.
Something like that, where someone making accusations of that, and it's fabricated, it's fucking lies. They should be accountable. Where it ruins, you know, not just yourself, Andy. There's many other people who've been through.
Well, this individual also took it a step further and started, this is before it even broke the story, posting stuff on Facebook about Gary Speed and about Barry Bennell and about other things, and then posting that person's self in the same area where I was living with my mum and dad, which was 50 miles away from where this person lived. So after numerous complaints saying this is harassment, this is stalking, please leave me alone, my mother sent one text to that person over a Facebook messenger and says, leave my son alone. About 3 days later, my dad had motor neurons disease then, and he'd been diagnosed with the death sentence. A sergeant turned up at my mum's house, walked into the house and cautioned her for harassment. One message to say, leave my son alone.
That's not
Now, the Harassment Act states on 2 or more occasions to cause another person harassment and distress. I'd made numerous complaints of harassment.
But you're
talking about Gary Speed here, talking about Barry Bennell, talking about, and it wasn't just one, it was numerous. It was taunting me.
Trying to get a reaction, and you still haven't broke this. You still haven't broke what's gone on.
No.
What was it, and that you finally just went 2016? It was just.
I think because I'd really struggled with what had happened to me, and the fact that I was traumatized again, and I kind of knew back then that it wasn't right what was going on, and I kind of gone, do you know something? I put all my trust into 13 years of my life into the police, and I was being completely, it was like my trust is gone for you as an organisation, but more importantly, how can I trust anyone or anything?
Is that how you felt?
Or any institute or any person?
You must have felt so lonely,
You
Andy.
just destroyed me. Yeah.
Lonely, I can't even begin to.
There's
You could think you've got no one around
Tony,
you.
there's lonely. You can be lonely on your own, but you can also be lonely with a partner, a husband, a wife, a sister,
Family.
a brother. The loneliness is in you, and you keep it all inside. And then I'd have blowouts where I'd just lock the door and I'd just cry and cry and cry. Not because I was feeling sorry for myself, but because I knew what the truths were, and I was being destroyed again. And throughout my life, everything that I've tried to do, somebody or something or some institute has has destroyed me.
Yeah.
And it's wrong. And it was like Bennell destroyed me. There was another coach there that destroyed me, which I could have gone to court with because he touched me up there. Then it was not just Crewe, but the FA, the PFA. Why didn't they protect me? Why didn't, relationships give me a break?
Everything just
everything. And then the police, I went in there to do a good job, and I got, what they don't know, people, I got that many awards, freaking superintendent's awards, you name it. Community policing, I got an award for that. I changed the law, not the laws, but I cut crime by 60% in an area. They all used to love me. PC Andy.
Yeah.
You've got football tournaments going. I did everything in the police because I wanted to give back all my pain to help other people.
Because you've got a kind heart, Andy, and
yeah,
that's, life. Life should be full of kind-hearted people.
And he just felt like everything then had destroyed me. And I'd seen a counsellor, and I was like, and I've never talked about this, Tony, I've only ever just said that, but that's what the absolute, it was like, you can't destroy me anymore. You can't destroy me anymore.
Because you've been fucking hurt, you've been destroyed that much.
This woman can't destroy me anymore. The institutes can't destroy me anymore. Well, what am I going to do? And it was, my counsellor had said, you need to write it down, Andy. This is just unbelievable. This isn't a story. This is like mega. And I ended up meeting Danny Taylor, and it was him that said, do an article. I just wanted to write it down, get it off me, get it out of my head. Because I was going under again.
When you spoke about it, Andy, I can only imagine you must have, what you've let out of you, that weight that's been hidden inside you since you were a 10-year-old boy, the shit that you've had to put up with, the abuse, the rapes, and then going through life where you feel like no one's backing you, no one's behind you.
I have 5 kids, I walked away from my nice house with bin bags. How is it? I had to start again with 4 kids in the house. In the police force, here we go again. Back to my mum and dad's. The amount of times I had bin bags and gone, here we go again. It's like a woman, that horrible accusation, Mum and dad, like, Andrew, why are these people doing it to you? Bin bags again. Here we go again. And it was like, I kind of just thought to myself, do you know what? I've had enough. I've had enough of people targeting me. And little did I know, by breaking that story,
how fucking went.
Yeah, but that was just the start of being targeted. Just the start.
So when it broke in 2016, when you found the courage to speak out, was it what the article? Was it an article in the local?
It was in the Guardian with Danny Taylor, front page, and I had to make a decision. The decision was, do I do this and put my name on it and my face on it? Because originally it wasn't going to be that, and
was it just going to be
just
out?
Anonymously.
Yeah.
And he asked me to do it, and I spoke to Stan Turner and Neil Warnock the night before, and it was.
Were they fully behind you?
And I sat on my own. I remember sat there on my own, and I cried, and I thought, if this goes tits up, I'm gone. Because I'd had enough. And, I'd lost the job with the police, and I was like, thank fuck for that. Get out of this horrible institute that destroys people. And I'm not just talking about myself. I've seen them destroy people. Other officers.
Men and women.
Good officers.
Men and women.
But the bad ones seem to get up the ladder. They get their promotions.
The corruption and stuff like that.
Don't start me on that. Now I know. But, yeah. And I cried, and I just thought, do it. And I got a phone call in the morning when it had gone to print. It went online, gone to print. And by the morning, Danny rang me. He was excited. He thought, ka-ching.
He's got to think that, innit? Because
he's a journalist, and rightly so. And he went, you're trending above Trump. It's gone mega, and be prepared, Andy.
And what was your phone, and what was everything?
It went off the scales. Within a couple of days, I'd had phone calls off ex-players coming out from nowhere. They were just like...
And that was something that you wasn't expecting, or was you half expecting it?
I was expecting some to come forward, yeah, because they knew I was the one, and I was the one. And it was like they turned around. We had to follow you, Andy. We had to follow you, Woody, because we know what you went through.
What some of them were subjected to, were they obviously not as...
No.
But it's still abuse, and
it doesn't matter. You touch somebody once, that's it. You've crossed that line.
Yeah.
You are classed as a paedophile.
Yeah. So from then on, and the days, the months, the years, what progressed then?
Yeah, I mean, I'd already told the Cheshire Police before. I said something big's going to come, and the detective, I wish I could meet him now, because I'd laugh in his face. He laughed in my face as if to say, "Are you for real?" Ha, pathetic kind of thing. I know it's going to happen. I so forewarned them, and then I asked Cheshire Police for the help, because I was getting bombarded with all these victims coming to me. I need help.
You need to follow this up and stuff. And
it was just I needed help because there was too many. Oh, we'll come back to you. So I was the one that was taking all of it, as well as doing all the interviews. I was taking it all. So I was getting hit from all players. I need to speak to you. I need to speak to you. Oh, Andy, it's happened to me. So I'm having all these people crying down the phone, as well as doing all these interviews as well, who sucked me dry and spat me out. A disgrace.
Yeah.
If people knew, I know how it all works with those industries.
Within the media, you mean?
Within the media. I know how they work. Just got spat out.
It's just like, something of this, how it is, it's so sick, and people within the industry of, like you say, in the media, people's, they don't care by the sound, what you're saying, what people have endured and what they've gone through.
No,
but to print and to fucking...
And I broke the story with no ego, no wanting any gain, and to, I couldn't sue Crew. I'd already sued them in 2003 and lost. So I couldn't go back. Do you know what I mean? It's like, for me, it was like, just want to get this as far and wide as I can. And I knew once it had gone biggish, and it went bigger and bigger.
It went worldwide, though.
It went global.
Yeah.
Then I did Good Morning Britain, I did CNN, I did everything. Channel 4, it was like going like that. And in my head, I was thinking, right, not only do I want more people to speak out, but you FA, you PFA, think you're big and like the pinnacle of all football. Well, this story's going bigger than you.
Did they come for you, Andy?
They asked me to do an interview at the start, and I had them all lined up outside Wembley. And Greg Clark hugged me, and they're all going, "Oh, Andy, we'll do this for you. We're going to do everything for you." Did he do anything? Zero. Total opposite. I was a marker, because I stood up, you see, and I went, "No, you're wrong. I'm truth. You're not." And because I did that, looking back on it now, it made my life hell for 8 years. And I've seen other ex-players get jobs in the FA, the PFA, work for them, doing all these talks. I was doing talks I flew over with Sky News to Sao Paulo, and it was live on Sky News. I did all that. I didn't do that for my gain, for my ego.
You were helping others.
I was helping children out there, and I did talks out there. I'd do talks in front of 100,000 people if I want.
Yeah.
I don't get anything from what I get from that is purity, that I am inspiring others, helping others to speak out.
Just not sit in silence, basically.
Yeah, and to just purely help others. And I tried to get I spoke to Tracy Crouch, who was the MP. Greg Clark has spoke in Parliament about me, and I went, "Screw you. Next day, the paper, it said about it was me. Next day after that, he was on a train from London to Malmaison in Manchester. Told Tracy Crouch he was going to give me a job in the FA. Oh, he lied. He said, no, I can't, Andy. What about the other lads? I said, well, everybody can be a part of it. Not a problem. What about me? No, Andy, I can't. No.
But he'd said he'd come.
He told Tracy Crouch that, and she was fuming. So these are the levels that I was speaking to. I was speaking to Tracy Crouch MP, who told me and assured me that he was going to give me a job. Oh no, that didn't happen.
With that job, and was that going to be where you might go into clubs and
that was my ethos. You see, I started the Offside Trust in December.
Yeah.
I had the world media there. I had 2 players come in, ex-City players, came in to the solicitors and threatened me and said, you bring City into this and you're going to get in trouble. Whoa. City were involved in it. And then, why can't we be a part of it? Well, because I've set this up. It's my vision. I do want others to be involved.
Because we want to try and help others?
Absolutely. No, and that wasn't the case. And one of these ex-players is now working for the FA, and little do people know what a threat I got. I got a threat. And I had the world press there, live BBC, Channel 4, ITV, you name it. Buff. The goodness of my heart, I asked Steve Walters and Chris Unsworth to be a part of it. It was my vision, and I knew what I wanted to do with it, collectively with others, sharing it, letting everybody be a part of it. Within a month, I'd gone up to Scotland to do a talk. My mum rang me up and went, do you realise you've been taken off Offside Trust? It's like, what? And because I'd involved them, and I'd gone away, because there was 2 solicitors involved, one of them being Ed Smethurst, who was involved with the Madeleine McCann inquiry, they removed me from it. I had to keep silent. I wanted to. The paper. I could have done articles after articles after articles with what they'd done to me. But because it was up and running and going, I didn't want to look as though, or not only look, but I didn't want to show that there was any animosity. So I lost my vision. They took it from me.
Yeah.
And then he had all the internet stuff saying, oh, Andy Woodward's a rapist, this, that, and the other. And the person behind that, I know who that man is. And it was all to push me aside.
This is why you were pushed out of Offside Trust and all that?
Yes.
So they put a bit of a vendetta, like trying to build sort of a thing about you and stuff like that?
Yes. And then I got death threats. I was on the phone in Euston, and the death threat was somebody in Wrexham, and the police didn't investigate that. But then the trolling that I had, just a few weeks after, they went to prison for 12 months, both of them, because I told the truth.
Yeah.
You know, so all this has gone on, and I've never said anything, and I've kept my dignity, my honesty, and I could have blown that out of the water. But that was my vision.
And of course you're going to be hurt, Andy. You know, you've put something inside that's been inside for that long. It comes to light. You're exposed. This and then the next thing, something that you want to implement, going into football clubs up and down the country. Yeah. Because this is what happened to yourself. And
absolutely, that was my vision. And
why wouldn't the FA?
Why not?
Wouldn't let you do this?
Exactly. And I'd been all over the world with this. And I didn't want it for myself. I would have done it with all the other people, but I was all over the world. I was doing interviews in bloody Colombia, Brazil, Argentina. I did magazines in France, Germany, Spain, every country. And then look at me sat here now. It's like I've disappeared off the face of the earth.
As if, with what's gone on, you don't exist, sort of thing. And what all you're trying to do, and is, raise awareness so this doesn't happen again. Yeah, we don't have to handle that.
It's like the Offside Trust side of things. There was a trial coming up as well, and they had blatantly lied. I could have discredited them like a poof, but there was a trial. That monster was not getting away with one charge against him.
He wants them to be
He
nailed for
needed
everything.
to be nailed for the lot. So again, kept my mouth shut. Again, I kept my mouth shut in court because I wanted to walk out with them all. Bear in mind, they took everything from me. I went to court and one individual said, why is he in court? It's not his trial. Well, excuse me, I never got justice. I could have gone again and done it again this time round and got proper justice. I left it to them for their trial, for them to get justice. With the goodness of my heart. Why is he in here? And then not only that, Tony, before we're going out to the world's press, if you ever look back at it, you'll see me on my own with my ex Zelda. And I'm out in front of the world press on my own. The only reason that happened was because I asked them if we could all go out together, and they went no and slammed the door on me. And I had to go out there on my own in front of the world's press and not say a word what they'd actually done to me. But I did it for the goodness of humanity and people. I could have just stood there and gone, well, this is what's happened. Now justice has been served. This is what's really happened behind the scenes. And it had gone global.
But you never.
Never. No. There's a big heart here. And not only that, no matter how the destruction they've caused me.
Has anyone ever reached out to you, Andy, any of them?
No.
Fucking heartbreaking to hear, you know what I mean?
No, it's wrong. It's wrong, and I'm about rights and wrongs, and it's never about, he did that, he said that, he did that, he did that. The wrongs are, I could have been an integral part. There's nothing I don't know about mental health. There's nothing I don't know about abuse. There's nothing I don't know about the recovery of that.
Yeah.
I've had alcohol issues. I've had everything.
You've got input there, and which, certain individuals might have great input in that.
And I had 13 years in the police. I know all about the judicial system. I know all about that.
Oh, was you just shunned, and?
Completely shunned. And then I started being followed and surveyed and followed and surveyed. And then there's all sorts of things happened. The BBC told me I couldn't do Football's Darkest Secret, but I could do my film. It took 4 years to make that film. And, with the budget, Nick Rowland that made it, brilliant. Jonas Armstrong that was in it, brilliant person. Gerard Kearns and the others and all the people around that, beautiful people. The BBC are an absolute disgrace.
Yeah.
They're a disgrace.
We know.
They are disgusting. And I told them that. And I had a record deal to go out for my dad's charity because he died. And my dad died. I'd got the go-ahead from the BBC and my dad died 10 minutes after. I had to take that as well. And pick my dad up and put him on his bed. Within all that, when I'm getting shit and crap from everyone. All the threats, all of this, all of that. And then my dad drops dead. Thank you.
You just you couldn't, this could, people might think this is mad, but what you've described, so it's nothing short of a film.
There's nothing, this is nothing what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
If I was to show you and tell you, I'd be here for another 3 hours. But I'm just giving you little snippets of what's actually happened behind the scenes.
You're dealing with all that, Andy, and then obviously you lose your dad, and and the film that's come, which was taken away, if I'm right.
And they stripped it, took it.
Who took it?
The BBC. All their empty promises and all what they told me was a total...
And you've never ever...
bullshit. And they made it at the same time as the Jimmy Savile one. And they filmed it at the same time as mine. They delayed the Jimmy Savile one another year. Took mine off. Boof. Here's the Jimmy Savile one. I'm telling you, I know...
Who has that film now, Andy?
They own the rights. I own the rights to the film. They own the rights to the production. So I can't do anything with it. They wouldn't even give me a copy of it. For myself. And the record deal, they turned around and said, no, every penny was going to go to my dad's charity. So when I challenged them, they turned around and said, well, we didn't notice for your dad. How dare you?
You did from the outset, yeah.
How dare you?
It's fucking horrific. It's just...
And how dare you deal with me the way you've dealt with me? And whilst I was making it with Matt Greenhalgh, I went into the gay village, and I didn't know it was that because my head was screwed from 9 till 6. And I got touched up by about a 58-year-old man or whatever he was, 60, and he was sat on a wall, and he touched my balls. And I completely freaked out. I ran. I cried. I rang the police. The police picked me up, took me home, and then they knew about it the following morning, so they brought me something to really make me feel okay to do it again after I'd been sexually assaulted the night before. Here's a blanket for you, Andy. I'll carry on. And I'd spent 3 months doing my butt 3 months earlier. They want me to.
Oh.
It's beggars belief. And I just wanted to do the righteous and the good thing for people.
And then you'd have all this that goes on, that comes with it, like the hell, you want people to help you and stick together, and this message of you know, don't sit in silence and try and help others.
Yeah, I tell you what, and I'm only just touching on it, and yeah, I will do another film once I've got myself up and running again. I will do another film. I've already spoke to a few people, not in this country, that's for sure. I don't trust this country as far as I can throw it.
That's what I'm saying, you know, people you think you can trust, and like you said about, obviously,
I don't trust anyone.
The BBC, it's like...
You know, it's like with you, I came and did that with Sean.
Yeah.
I trust him. He's a great guy, and what a elusive dove.
Well, that's what I was going to touch on. That was one of my next questions.
But just before we go on to that, you know, what they have done and how they've gone about it, I will reveal the truth because I've got it all documented. Nobody will touch me. The media in this country, bear in mind, they were all my best friend, and they all wanted a piece of me, and they all wanted... But when I turned around and said, I want to tell home truths about what's really happened, Andy, our bosses won't allow it. Our bosses won't allow it. They won't allow that to go to print. Oh, I wonder why. Because I'm taking on, and I'm mentioning big institutes here.
Yeah.
But I'm telling the truth.
That's it, and this is it.
See, they didn't see me coming with the Guardian one because I blindsided them. And then I took the roof off it. And they destroyed me. Destroyed me.
Something now the next time, whenever that'll come,
They didn't expect me still to be alive, that's for sure. They even chucked me in a mental hospital to discredit me. Have that.
How long was you in a mental hospital for?
3 weeks in all. And it was wrong. And I still can't get my medical notes 3.5 years later.
If that's not targeted, I don't know what is.
I don't even go into that. That was crazy, that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't crazy. I proved that afterwards. Spoke to psychiatrists, everything. I did my film. I made it.
And then it's taken away from you.
Yeah. But I proved that there was nothing wrong with me.
It's unbelievable.
And what goes on in those places, I will expose as well.
That's another level.
Because that is another level.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Tony. I witnessed things that I will reveal one day that would make people's toes curl. I was Jack Nicholson in there, literally one for the cuckoo's nest. And the things
just
that they...
observing everything.
Yeah, I was watching everything. Watching everything. Phenomenal.
Unbelievable, yeah. You're saying about trusting people. Obviously, I've met Sean.
Yeah.
And he's a great lad.
Yeah.
And what the work that you do with the elusive child protection unit.
Yeah.
You know, catching paedophiles, basically.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
People, going to meet underage children.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, the stories that we spoke about.
I know. And the thing is as well with it, all the teams that do it out there, and I think, you know, some of the officers are really good, and there's some really proactive ones that are like, yeah, get them locked up.
That's what they're there for. Yeah.
But as an institute and as an organisation, the police will absolutely detest it, because what it's doing is it's actually showing up what's really going on and how many are out there doing what they're doing.
And it is out of control, Andy.
Oh, it's out of control, right? And I mean out of control. But they fudge the figures, they play with the wording. You know, Mr. Watson at Greater Manchester Chief Constable, we're making steps for, you know, the gangs in Rochdale and Oldham. Well, it's far too late, and secondly, no, they're not. They're not even
touching
the policies and procedures around that. You know, you can stand in front of any media and say, this is what we're doing. It's like any politician. You know, what's been going on with the Labour and Conservatives, and, you know, there's been a shift of power, but where is the power? Who is in power? You know, it's one of them. But, yeah, it's like, so it's showing them up, and what Sean does in Elusive, what people don't realise is the work that goes on in the background, and the trauma also that it puts, you know, the decoys that do it,
the chats and stuff,
and
like
the
that,
chats, and I tell you, they're absolute warriors in their own right. And what Sean does, and the other teams, but I think with Sean's team, you know, sometimes they'll say, oh, it's a bit OT. It's balanced in certain ways, you know, but it takes a lot for a group of people that are doing it free of charge.
Yeah, there's no funding or nothing, is there?
That what people say on there, what they would want to do to them, and have to keep that inside you.
Yeah,
yourself.
contain
It's like
yourself.
The ones I've gone on. Don't get me wrong. There's times where I want to, you know, what I would do to you right in front of me, but it's keeping that decorum and that dignity inside you to, one, help the people that are watching it, because a lot of people that watch it are victims and have got trauma, and they want to see justice because they can't get it themselves. So they're seeing justice in some way, watching it.
Watching them snake,
getting caught, getting locked up.
Being charged.
And that's why, you know, when I've done them, I always mention the victims out there and the people that are watching it, because it's giving them something and some hope. You know, and not only that, it's out of control. It's out of control, and what they do, I mean, it's...
The stories that you told me, well, Icon in earlier episodes.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing that people are doing. They're doing it on their own free will.
Yeah, they're not paid. It's not,
and you know,
it's not a charity either. It's not funded or anything, is it?
Like the security,
the lads
some
and
of
that.
them, yeah, some of them will drive from London, and they've been working all day, and they'll drive all the way up to protect children, and that's all the ethos of it. It's to protect children and get them locked away.
Because you know what? Because it is a decoy, but these people think they're going to meet a fucking child.
Oh, they genuinely believe they are meeting.
And some of the despicable chats, I remember you telling me a few.
Yeah.
Didn't go into too much detail.
No.
But I could not imagine, you know, and you see it sometimes on a live when they do catch them. And is it Pam?
Pam. She's amazing.
How she deals with them chat logs.
Yes.
And then obviously she's got a normal general life.
Yeah.
With some of the despicable things.
Yeah. But the warriors, they're all warriors.
It's
they're
absolutely,
like Viking warriors.
It's unbelievable.
Literally. And, you know, some people will go, well, why are you doing this? Leave it to the police. Well, are the police touching on it?
No,
they're not even touching a little tiny little bit of what's going on.
It's not even touching the surface, is it?
Not even close to.
But it's just unbelievable work what they do, and he's a great lad, Sean. Like.
Yeah, he is, and should get a bit more credit for what they do. Even the other teams, but they don't. They get, you know, certainly Sean's had his Facebook took down numerous times.
Yeah.
Who by those in authority, those in power.
It's crazy, and they're trying to protect our children. And
absolutely.
And that's what it's all about, you know.
And the amazing thing with, you know, Elusive is that, you know, they're 100% success rate. It's all done completely as it should be.
Legit, isn't it?
Yeah. Right the way through to court, All the statements are done. Everything is watertight.
They've got like what's the name? Like you just said, a success rate 100%. Everyone they've caught, or
it's watertight.
they've got like all convictions, jail and stuff like that as well. Which they deserve.
Yeah.
Or they need throwing in a fucking hole in the ground and never coming back.
Yeah, and
in my opinion.
Yeah, and they got security to do, defence tactics and stuff like that, and everything's it's evolving.
Yeah,
it's evolving.
But that's a good thing to say. So Andy, what are you doing with your life now?
Well, it's probably took me three years, because where I'm at now is I've been struggling. I have struggled, and I didn't ask in 2016. I believed I was doing something for the greater good of humanity, and that's all I wanted to do. Little did I know that it would be 8 years of hell, and I've had to now been re-traumatised like I was as a child, and it's took me 3 years just to get myself back up on my feet again.
Try and get back.
And the trauma of being chucked in there, the trauma of what they've done to me, the trauma of the lies, the evil people that are behind these institutes, but not only that, other people that they've done it for their own gain, and they've also been very nasty along the way. So I've been re-traumatised, and it's times where I've been, and I mean literally in dark places. I've not tried to commit suicide, but I've been where I've been days and days and days in bed.
Just haven't had the what's need to get up.
I mean, like physically, like those will know when you get into a deep, darkness.
Depressed.
It's darkness. It's beyond that. You physically can't, and that's no fault of my own, and I know that that's no fault of my own. I didn't ask for that, and those that are responsible for it, I believe that karma comes. I'm very spiritual. I had a spiritual awakening, and I do believe that the world is changing. It is shifting. You see the little shift with the politics now, and all I've got to do now is just pick myself up and move forward. I've spent 3 years in pain, and it's my time now to stand up again. And I'm 50 now. I've had 40 years of hell, off and on. And I just want whatever little time I've got left on this earth to be able to pick myself back up. I do want truth. I do want it to be revealed. How I get that, I'll find a way. I'll find a way. And I want to move forward, but I also want to continue to help others and inspire others and give them belief that you can survive this. If I've survived it, then so can you.
And don't sit in silence and
no,
never.
No. It's everybody's free will, but it is a life sentence. No matter if you're in silence or not in silence, it's how you manage that, and it's how you accept it for what it is. It's took me 3 years to accept what's happened the last 8. That's a long time. But that's an extreme, you see, with me. But it takes time to heal. But have you got good people around you? And you choose them wisely, because you have to choose them wisely who you trust.
Of course you do, yeah.
Who you trust to tell that secret. You've got to have the ultimate trust first.
Andy, do you know what? That's probably one of the, deep, toughest podcasts we've ever done. And obviously, speaking to you on an earlier podcast, I knew your story and stuff, and I just wanted to put my own spin on it. And and I know you've done many podcasts.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, but I felt really relaxed in here, and more importantly, for me, I've not even touched on the surface there, but at least I've been able to show or bring more out on the table. And there's so much more. I
can imagine there's so much more, and who's saying we might do it again. But Andy, I just want to say thank you so much for giving your time up this evening, and also coming on and sharing the good, the bad and the ugly with us, mate.
No, thank you, and thank you guys. But also, thank those that are watching it, and I just hope it's given them a bit of hope, a bit of inspiration, because I'm still here. and I'm still alive. I shouldn't be, but I am. And there's many out there. You just got to keep, even when it's the darkest day, every day's a new day. And when you wake up that following day, just try again, and then the next, and try again. You can't build a house without foundations, and if you try and work on those foundations, you can build those bricks.
Andy, thanks very much, mate. I just want to say thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you, mate.
Thank
you.